When Kristen Wiig took the hallowed Studio 8H stage for her anxiously anticipated return to her comedic alma mater, few could have predicted the whirlwind of controversy soon to detonate across the comedy landscape. The beloved former cast member had been warmly welcomed back to the Saturday Night Live stage to guest host the iconic late night's first pandemic-reopened live studio audience show. After the pandemic delays stretched into multiple years, expectations could not have been higher for Wiig's homecoming to break the ice with an outrageously funny bang. What transpired instead was perhaps the most sustained, profanity-drenched, misogyny-charged character assassination to ever grace the stage. And while Wiig's seemingly improvised target of scorn and disgust may have seemed richly to deserve all the piling on vitriol, it was the sheer unrestrained brutality in which the insults cascaded that rendered Studio 8H's atmosphere shell-shocked and unsalvageable for 90 unrelentingly uncomfortable minutes of live television. It began innocuously enough with Wiig opening her monologue by reminiscing on first cutting her teeth doing that same intro speech back when she was a rookie cast member during SNL's late 2000s glory years. It was such an amazing feeling seeing my mom beaming back at me from the audience as a featured player after years of doing community theater, Wiig fondly narrated through the nostalgic career arc. Then came her first surprising punchline introduction. Kinda makes me sympathize with wannabe princesses who will resort to literally the most outrageous stunts possible just to capture a little piece of that spotlight and attention, Wiig jabbed, allowing a brief comedic pause for the studio crowd laughs that never quite blossomed. Shifting somewhat awkwardly thanks to the anticlimactic silence, Wiig pushed forward. Like, I'm talking hiring truck plastics companies to manufacture counterfeit pregnancy bumps, then wearing them around LA while hitting the talk show circuits to pretend you finally landed your very own royal sprog. What a sad, pervasive need for attention and relevance. Instantly the very intimation that Wiig was about to satirize Meghan Markle with easy punchlines drew slight discomfort titters from the audience. After all, the erstwhile Duchess of Sussex had seen her approval ratings and public goodwill perennially crater into negatives once reserved for genocidal warlords based on lengthy lists of deception, alleged money grubbing and outright hostility towards entitlement checked by her departed royals in-laws. If Wiig's writing room intended to lampoon a figure already dismissed by much of America as a detestable attention troll destined for irrelevance as a quasi-celebrity, then her material had plenty of runway to joke within the realm of good taste. Or so everyone thought. What happened over the subsequent marathon 15-minute chunk of Wiig's monologue devolved into something sinister, an apparently unhinged, bare-knuckle takedown of Meghan's very existence as a human being. As her jokes grew cruder, darker and more patently unfunny, the comedian appeared to careen directly into psychological torture territory for live television. She literally forced her own prince husband to go along with the grotesque fibs about squirting out royal brats from her cobbled Hallmark Channel birthing hips, Wiig suddenly bellowed in an angrier cadence. Buckled herself into ridiculously counterfeit bumps day after day as laundry lists of side-eye dragged her from one end of the internet to the other. All for one sick, desperate sliver of residual fame she hasn't sniffed since being booted off basic cable reruns. The more Wiig dug in and curdled, the more her scorched earth satire against Meghan transmogrified from playful punching down to alarmingly uncomfortable hate speech. At a certain point, even the live studio audience seemed visibly bewildered and discomfited by the acceleration into overt misogyny and damning hot mic character assignations. This conniving bitch has become the literal picture you see when anyone Googles wannabe lying grift monkey in Urban Dictionary, Wiig spat with seething fury, seemingly angrier about an obscure umbrage than anybody else on stage could rationalize. Ratchet trailer park prom queen headcase who finally squirmed her way into hogging sidebar status as some sort of sham princess before defiling the legacy of literally everyone who birthed her half-witted ass. Kristen Wiig's shockingly vicious and misogynistic monologue targeting Meghan Markle on Saturday Night Live provoked instant backlash and outrage from both the studio audience and the general public. In the Studio 8H audience, the initial awkward titters over Wiig's dated jokes about Meghan's alleged fake pregnancy quickly gave way to a palpable atmosphere of discomfort and confusion as the insults escalated. Viewers could audibly hear murmurs and shifting in their seats as Wiig launched into an unrestrained stream of profanity and vitriolic personal attacks, calling Meghan things like a conniving bitch and lying grift monkey. As the rant pushed well past good-natured satire into alarmingly misogynistic territory, audience members began walking out in visible disgust. Footage showed many with hands over their mouths in shock as the surprisingly cruel diatribe persisted for over 15 minutes with no apparent comedic justification beyond Wig's own apparent hatred for Markle. Backstage, the SNL cast and crew were equally blindsided and horrified. Reports later emerged that Wig had gone entirely off-script and ignored desperate cues from producers to wrap up the runaway monologue. Lorne Michaels was apparently furious and at one point nearly stepped on stage to force Wig off the mic. Once the show finally aired, the immediate public backlash on social media was swift and overwhelmingly negative. Though Meghan herself is generally a very controversial and polarizing figure, Wig faced widespread condemnation for her shockingly crass insults and unrestrained anger toward another woman, especially one already dealing with credible claims of trauma, racism, and misogyny from the British tabloid media. Making fun of someone's appearance or ethics is one thing, but that was straight-up misogynistic verbal assault barely even framed as comedy. Kristen needs to take a long look in the mirror, read one viral tweet. Imagine being so threatened by another woman's existence that you resort to calling her a conniving bitch and lying grift monkey on national television without any jokes or punchlines. Just vicious woman-hating toxicity for 15 minutes, wrote another popular reaction. Media critics universally panned Wig's bizarre meltdown as shockingly unfunny, mean-spirited, and beneath the intelligence of someone with her comedic caliber and legacy at SNL. Questions were raised about what could have possibly motivated such an unhinged rant disparaging another woman in such degrading and personal terms. In the ensuing days, pressure mounted on Wig to directly apologize to Markle and condemn her own unacceptable rhetoric. SNL also faced calls to issue a mea culpa and add more stringent safeguards to prevent similar hate-fueled episodes in the future under the guise of satirical comedy. Some tried defending Wig as a comedian pushing boundaries with edgy material about an admittedly polarizing public figure. But the overwhelming consensus painted her monologue as a startling example of how even talented artists can sometimes succumb to mind-boggling lapses in judgment that have serious cultural consequences. For NBC, the incident raised serious PR headaches and prompted reviews of the show's practices to avoid similar controversies in the future. For Wig herself, the outcry over her bafflingly toxic tirade represented a significant threat to her previously sterling reputation cultivated over decades in the comedy world.